You forged Daddy's signature, Cunnel. You stole from your own father while he's lying there dying. The words sliced through the air like a machete. The dining room of the Olawukra mansion, marble floors gleaming beneath a golden chandelier, fell dead silent. The smell of expensive jollof and roasted goat hung in the air, but nobody dared to eat now. This wasn't a dinner. It was war. Cunnel, tall, broad, and polished in his Italian suit, froze, his fork midair. Across the table, his younger sister Bimp, the billionaire's only daughter, trembled with fury, her voice cracking from equal parts rage and heartbreak. Their father, Chief Samuel Olawukra, one of Lagos's richest industrialists, lay unconscious upstairs in his massive bedroom at St. George's private hospital. Doctors had said he had 2 days to live. 2 days, and somehow his family had turned those hours into a battlefield. Bimp slammed a folder on the table, scattering bank statements. Do you think I wouldn't find out? Daddy trusted you to manage the company accounts while he was sick, and you've been funneling billions into shell companies. Their mother, Madame Saad Olawukra, gasped, clutching her chest. Cunnel, my son, tell me this is a lie. Tell me your sister is mad. Cunnel leaned back slowly, exhaling through his nose. Mother, you don't understand. Everything I did was for the family. For the company. For the company? Bimp spat. You mortgaged our father's assets without his consent. You used his name to take loans from foreign investors, and when he collapsed last month, you made it look like he approved everything. The tension was so thick, even the housemaids hiding by the kitchen door didn't dare breathe. Cunnel rose from his seat, his calmness almost more terrifying than Bimp's fury. Listen to yourself, Bimp. You've never run a business in your life. You were Daddy's favorite, pampered, sheltered. You have no idea what it takes to protect a billion-dollar empire in this country. Without me, Olawukra Holdings would have been swallowed by our rivals. Bimp's lips trembled. So, stealing from your dying father is your idea of protection? The sound of Madame Sada's sob echoed around the table. Cunnel, your father trusted you. You were supposed to keep this family together. Cunnel's jaw tightened. And I did. While you were praying and Bimp was busy attending charity galas, I was fighting to keep the empire afloat. You think Daddy would have wanted us to lose everything he built? Bimp shot back. He would never want you to sell his shares to those corrupt men from Abuja. You've turned his illness into your opportunity. The mention of Abuja hit a nerve. Cunnel's face darkened. Madame Saad rose shakily. Cunnel, please don't tell me the rumors are true. Did you really give control of the company to Senator Odu? Cunnel turned away, silent. Bimp's voice dropped, cold as steel. You did. Her hands shook as she pulled another document from the folder, a signed transfer form. Look at the signature. Daddy hasn't even been conscious for weeks. You forged it. Cunnel slammed the table. Enough. The chandelier trembled. Madame Saad gasped again. You don't understand what's at stake, Cunnel hissed. Senator Odu promised government contracts that would triple our revenue. I did what had to be done. Bimp stepped closer, her tears flowing freely now. And what about Daddy's legacy? What about the workers who've been unpaid for months? You've ruined everything he stood for. Her voice cracked. You've destroyed this family. Cunnel's eyes softened for a split second, then hardened again. The family was already broken, Bimp. I just stopped pretending. Outside, thunder rumbled over Ikoyi as rain began to fall. In the hospital room upstairs, Chief Samuel's breathing was shallow, a weak machine keeping him alive. The nurse adjusted the oxygen tube, and in that moment, a faint movement crossed the old man's fingers. He wasn't gone yet. Back at the mansion, Bimp grabbed her car keys. I'm going to the hospital. I'll tell the doctors to keep him under full security. Nobody, especially you, Cunnel, is to go near him. Cunnel laughed quietly, almost mockingly. You think you can stop me? You don't even know half of what's coming. Bimp's head snapped toward him. What do you mean? He smirked. You'll see. Let's just say, when Daddy's will is read, you might not like what you hear. Madame Saad cried out. Cunnel, stop this madness. Your father isn't even gone yet. Cunnel adjusted his cufflinks, cold and deliberate. Sometimes, mother, you have to bury the past before it buries you. Bimp rushed outside, rain pelting her hair as she got into her car. Her mind raced. The will? What did he mean? She called their father's lawyer, Mr. Adeoi, but the line went straight to voicemail. Something wasn't right. As she started the car, a shadowy figure in a black raincoat watched from across the street, the mansion's gate barely shielding him from the downpour. He had been standing there for over an hour, waiting. When Bimp's car disappeared into the night, the man stepped closer, revealing a weathered face, eyes full of sorrow. His clothes were tattered, soaked through, clearly homeless. He looked up at the mansion and whispered, "Chief Samuel, I told you this day would come." Then he turned and began walking toward the hospital. This is Stories_by_Stoner, where betrayal meets redemption, and every secret has a heartbeat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping African dramas. What do you think happens next? Who is the homeless man? And what secret does he know about the Billionaire's family? Comment below. Remove that man from the premises. He's scaring the patients. The nurse's voice cracked through the sterile air of St. George's Hospital as two security guards dragged a frail, drenched man toward the exit. His tattered shirt clung to his skin, and his face, weathered by years of hardship, carried a kind of pain that made even strangers pause. But Tajudeen didn't resist. He only whispered hoarsely, "Tell Chief Samuel, Taju is here. He'll know me. Please." The guards ignored him, pulling him through the sliding doors just as headlights cut through the rain. A sleek black Range Rover screeched to a stop. The door burst open, and out stepped Bimp Olawukura, her designer dress soaked, her makeup smudged by tears and rain. "Wait," she shouted, running toward them. "What's going on here?" The nurse hesitated. "Miss Olawukura, this homeless man claims to know your father." Bimp's heart was still racing from the confrontation at home. She looked at the man, gray in his beard, his lips trembling. Something in his eyes stopped her cold. "Who are you?" she asked. The man lowered his gaze. "Once upon a time, your father called me brother." Bimp frowned. "That's impossible. My father doesn't have any brothers alive." Tajudeen gave a faint, tired smile. "Not by blood. By destiny." The guards shifted awkwardly. Rain drummed against the hospital windows as Bimp stared at him. Something about the way he spoke, the soft Yoruba accent, the calm despite his condition, felt eerily familiar. "Fine," she said finally. "Let him stay for a minute." The nurse tried to protest, but Bimp's tone was steel. "He stays." They led Tajudeen to a quiet corner of the hospital lobby. He sat slowly, clutching his frayed jacket as Bimp stood before him, arms crossed. "You said my father would know you." "How?" Tajudeen's voice trembled. "Because he owes me his life." For a moment, Bimp almost laughed, the absurdity of it all. But when she saw his eyes, clouded with both sorrow and pride, she couldn't. Tajudeen looked up. 30 years ago, before your father became Chief Olawukura, he was just a struggling trader. He owned one small workshop in Ojota. I worked for him, fixing engines, painting buses, doing whatever it took." Bimp's lips parted slightly. She'd heard bits of her father's early years, but never in such detail. "One night," Tajudeen continued, "he was attacked. Armed robbers. I was the one who pulled him out of the fire when they burned the shop. I carried him on my back through the streets while people watched. He promised me then, he said, 'Taju, if I live, I'll never forget you.'" His voice cracked. "But he did." Bimp's chest tightened. "If that's true, why didn't you come back? Why now?" Tajudeen looked away. "Because I was framed. Your brother, Cunnel, he was a boy then, but greedy even then. He accused me of stealing from your father's safe. Your father believed him." He laughed bitterly. "They dragged me out of the compound like a criminal. I lost everything, my home, my dignity, my family. I became this." Bimp's hands trembled. "Cunnel again." She wanted to dismiss the story, but deep down, something inside her screamed that it made sense. Cunnel had always been cunning, always manipulative. My father wouldn't have believed such lies, she whispered weakly. Tajudeen sighed. Maybe not then. But power changes people, child. Your father built his empire, but it was built on the silence of those he left behind. Inside the ICU, the steady beeping of Chief Samuel's heart monitor faltered for a moment. The nurse leaned over him, adjusting the tubes, and his eyelids flickered open.
He tried to speak. His voice was a faint rasp.
Taju. Then he fell still again. When Bimp entered the room moments later, the nurse rushed toward her. He woke up briefly. He said a name. It sounded like Taju. Bimp froze. She turned back toward the waiting area, her pulse pounding. Tajudeen was sitting quietly, staring at the hospital floor. How do you know my father's name for you? She asked in a whisper. He looked up, his eyes wet. Because once, he was my only friend. Bimp sank into the chair beside him, speechless. For the first time in weeks, she felt something beyond anger, curiosity. Why are you here now after all these years? She asked. Tajudeen hesitated. Because your brother is repeating history. The same greed that ruined me is about to destroy your father's soul, and yours too, if you're not careful. Bimp swallowed hard. You keep saying my brother. Colonel, what has he done now? He leaned closer. He made deals with dangerous men. Your father's company isn't just in debt, it's being used to launder money for people who don't forgive. If your father dies before the contracts are exposed, your entire family will be blamed. Bimp's breath caught. That can't be true. Tajudeen's voice was steady. I've seen it before. You must look inside the file in your father's private safe, the one hidden behind his study's bookshelf. Bimp stared at him. How do you know that safe exists? He smiled sadly. Because I helped him build it. Hours passed. The rain softened. Bimp sat beside her father's bed, watching him breathe, her mind swirling. Could this old man be telling the truth? Or was he another opportunist drawn to her father's name? Her phone buzzed. A message from Colonel. Stay out of family business, Bimp. You've caused enough damage. We'll talk after the will reading tomorrow. She deleted it without replying, her jaw tightening. By midnight, she found Tajudeen asleep in a chair. His face looked peaceful, almost gentle. She whispered to the nurse, let him stay here tonight. I'll handle it. But at 3 a.m., when she woke up to check on him, his chair was empty. Security guards rushed to her side. Madam, the homeless man you asked us to watch, he's gone. He left without a word. Bimp's heart raced.
Gone?
Where? One of them handed her a folded note.
He dropped this.
She unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky but clear. If you want to save your father, meet me where it all began, before sunrise. There was no signature, only a single word written at the bottom. Ojoda. Thunder rumbled again in the distance. Bimp stared at the note, her pulse thundering in her ears. Ojoda. Daddy's old workshop. She grabbed her coat, determination flooding her veins. Whatever truth Tajudeen was hiding, she would find it. You finally came, just like your father the night everything changed. Rain had started to fall again over Ojoda, light but steady, tracing thin silver lines across the windshield of Bimp's SUV. The wipers squeaked, sweeping away each drop as she turned into the narrow lane beside the old industrial yard. Lagos was awake but restless, generators humming, the distant echo of horns from Ikorodu Road. Yet this street lay quiet, as if the city had forgotten it. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat, an unknown number again. She ignored it. The only light came from her headlamps reflecting against a rusted gate with a fading inscription. Olawukura and Sons Auto Workshop. Her father's first business. The foundation of their empire. She killed the engine and stepped into the drizzle, clutching her phone and a small flashlight. Her designer heels sank into the mud. The gate creaked open with a slow metallic cry. Inside, darkness. Tajudeen, she whispered. The beam of her torch sliced through the gloom, landing on scattered tools, rusted car parts, and a wall clock frozen at 11:47, the hour the old workshop had burned 3 decades ago. Over here, came a hoarse voice. She spun around. Tajudeen stood near a corner, his coat soaked through, his eyes sharp despite the years. The dim lantern beside him flickered, throwing ghostly shadows across the walls. "You shouldn't have come alone," he said. "You asked me to," she snapped, her voice trembling. "I've risked everything. Connell will notice I'm gone. Connell already knows. He sent men to find me last night. That's why we must hurry." Bimp's pulse quickened. "You said you have proof. Proof that your brother is preparing your father's death," Tajudeen interrupted quietly. "And that your family's fortune began with lies." He bent down and pulled aside an old crate. Beneath it, a wooden trapdoor. Dust puffed into the air as he lifted it, revealing a metal box wrapped in a plastic bag. Bimp's hand trembled as he opened it. Inside were brittle papers, faded photographs, and a small USB flash drive sealed in nylon. "What's all this?" she asked. Tajudeen stared at the papers for a long moment before speaking. "Your father and I built this place together. We fixed engines, saved every naira. Then one night there was a fire. Everyone said robbers set it, but it wasn't true." Her flashlight flickered as thunder cracked outside. "It was insurance fraud," he continued. "Your mother, God rest her soul, signed the papers. She took the money and pushed Chief Samuel to move to Okoye, start over. But I refused to lie, so your brother framed me for theft. I lost everything." Bimp's throat tightened. "No, my mother would never. She did it to save you from hunger." But Connell learned the truth years later. "He's been blackmailing your father ever since. The illness, the forged documents, the senator, all tied to this." He held up the flash drive. "This is proof. Copies of bank transfers, the fake death certificate Connell plans to use, everything." The sound of an engine rumbled outside. Both froze. Tajudeen's face hardened. "Did you come alone?" "Yes," she whispered. He snuffed out the lantern. "Then they found us." Two black SUVs slid to a stop by the gate, headlights cutting through the rain. Shadows moved, 4, maybe 5 men, wearing dark suits. Bimp's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Tajudeen pressed the flash drive into her hand. "Hide this. Don't let them catch you. The workshop has a back exit behind the generator shed. When I say run, run." Before she could respond, the gate clanged open. Flashlights swept through the workshop. "Search everywhere," a man barked. "Senator says the girls got the drive." Bimp's breath hitched. Tajudeen motioned toward the rear, crouching low. They crept past rusted machinery. Water dripped from the ceiling, splashing softly on the concrete. Suddenly, a beam of light hit them. "There!" someone shouted. "Run!" Tajudeen roared. They bolted. Bullets cracked, shattering glass, sparks flying from metal. Bimp ducked instinctively, heart hammering. Tajudeen grabbed a wrench and hurled it, hitting one of the men's flashlights. "Go, Bimp," he shouted. She scrambled toward the back, squeezing through a narrow gap in the wall. Her clothes tore, mud splattered her face, but she didn't stop. Tajudeen followed, but one of the men lunged and grabbed his coat. He twisted, striking back with surprising strength for an old man. The struggle echoed through the yard. "Leave him," Bimp cried, turning back. "Run, girl," Tajudeen yelled. "Save your father." The command sliced through her panic. She turned and fled down the alley, rain soaking her hair. Behind her, gunfire erupted, sharp, echoing against corrugated roofs. She stumbled onto the main road, headlights blinding her. A yellow Danfo bus screeched to a stop inches away. "Madam, you won't die," the conductor yelled. "Just drive," she gasped, diving inside. The driver hit the accelerator. The bus sped off, bouncing through potholes. Bimp clutched her purse, feeling the flash drive inside. Then boom. The explosion tore through the dawn. A fiery glow lit up the sky behind them. People screamed. She turned to the window. The old workshop burned again, flames licking the sky. Her chest tightened. "Tidin." The driver shook his head. "Madam, you know fit go back there, oh. That place don't blow." She sat frozen, rain mixing with tears. When they reached Maryland, she jumped out, ignoring the conductor's protests, and hailed a cab toward Okoye. Her phone buzzed again, the same unknown number. This time, she answered. Hello. A deep male voice came through, calm and deliberate. If you want proof your brother has killed before, come to the house now. Bring no one. The line went dead. Her hands trembled. She stared at the phone, then at the wet skyline beyond the car window. The flash drive felt heavy in her palm. Could it be true? Could Connell have gone that far? As the cab sped across Third Mainland Bridge, Lagos stretched out beneath the morning fog, towers, traffic, the restless city pulsing with secrets. In the distance, she saw the billboard with her father's face, Chief Samuel Olawukra, building a stronger tomorrow. She whispered under her breath, tomorrow might not come if I don't stop Connell tonight. The driver glanced at her in the mirror. Madam, you okay? She forced a weak smile. Just drive faster. The rain thickened, blurring the skyline. She clutched the flash drive tighter, every instinct screaming that the call wasn't just a warning, it was a trap. Still, she knew she had no choice. Her father's life, her family's legacy, maybe even her own safety, depended on what waited behind those gates in Ikoyi. The car turned off the expressway. Her phone buzzed again, one new message.
We know you have the drive.
Bimp's heart stopped. She looked up. 2 black SUVs were parked across from her father's mansion gates. The driver frowned. Madam, what'd happen? Don't stop, she whispered, ducking low. But it was too late. One of the SUVs started moving, following them. Bimp's phone rang again, same number. She answered, whispering, Who are you? The voice laughed softly. You'll find out when you see your brother's face. The line cut. She looked out the window. The mansion's lights flickered in the storm. Somewhere inside, her unconscious father lay unaware that death itself might already be knocking. Bimp drew a deep breath, whispered a silent prayer, and said to the driver, Turn around. Drop me at the corner. I'll walk. The man looked confused but obeyed. As she stepped out into the rain, lightning tore across the Lagos sky. Bimp fixed her scarf, wiped her face, and hid the flash drive inside her blouse. She stared at the mansion gates glowing faintly through the mist. Let's finish this, Connell, she whispered. And with that, she stepped into the storm. This is Stories_by_Stoner. Thank you for watching. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Jamaica, Atlanta, Nairobi, or right here in Lagos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for the next gripping chapter. What would you do if your own brother wanted your father dead for money? The night the house went silent. The rain followed Bimp all the way back to Ikoyi, turning the quiet streets into rivers of reflection. The cab's headlights carved silver lines through puddles as the driver slowed near the tall gates of the Olawukra mansion. She had expected the usual guards at their posts, but the chairs by the gatehouse were empty, the security lights flickering weakly. The iron gates hung half open, something that never happened, not even during power cuts. Her fingers clenched around the flash drive hidden inside her blouse. Madam, you sure say dem expect you? The cab driver asked, peering into the darkness. Yes, she lied, eyes fixed on the mansion. Drive off, please. He hesitated. No look normal, oh. Just go. As the car rolled away, the night swallowed its taillights. Only the low hum of generators and distant thunder remained. Bimp pulled her scarf tighter, pushed the gate open, and slipped inside. The marble driveway glistened with rain. Every step she took echoed faintly, like the house was listening. She had grown up here. Birthdays by the fountain, Christmas under the mango tree, but tonight the mansion felt strange, hollow, like a shell without its soul. She reached the front door. It was unlocked. Connell, she whispered. No answer. Inside, the living room lights were dim. The portraits of their parents stared down from the walls, her mother's smile frozen forever in time. The air smelled of antiseptic and faint incense from the chapel downstairs. She tiptoed toward her father's room. Machines beeped steadily beyond the half-closed door. For a moment, relief washed over her. He was still here. She pushed the door open gently. Chief Samuel lay motionless, his face pale under the blue hospital light. The nurse on duty had fallen asleep on a chair, head tilted back. Bimp moved closer, touching her father's cold hand. "Daddy," she whispered, "I swear I'll save you. I know everything now." The rain hit the window harder, drumming like fingers on glass. For the first time, she thought she saw his eyelids flicker, just slightly, as if some part of him was listening. She bent closer. "Please hold on a little longer." Her phone buzzed. She silenced it instantly and stepped into the corridor. A faint voice carried down the hallway, low, masculine, urgent. "We can't delay any longer. The senator expects results." Bimp froze. She recognized that voice. Colonel. She pressed herself against the wall and peered through the narrow crack of the study door. There he was, dressed in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, sitting behind their father's mahogany desk. Beside him stood Senator Odiu, his broad frame blocking the lamplight, and a nervous doctor clutching a brown envelope. Inside the study, Colonel leaned back, voice cool, calculating. "You'll file the certificate at General Hospital before sunrise. Cause of death, heart failure." The young doctor hesitated. "But sir, your father is still." Colonel's eyes snapped up. "He won't be by morning." Senator Odiu tapped ash into a crystal tray. "You're playing a dangerous game, Colonel. When family blood mixes with politics, it stains deeper than money."
Colonel smirked.
"That's why we wash it with power." The senator chuckled softly, impressed and disturbed all at once. "And the girl?" "She's not a problem. I'll handle her once this is over." Odiu leaned forward. "Make sure you do. The deal with the foreign investors won't survive scandal. I can't afford loose ends." Colonel poured himself a drink, amber liquid glinting under the lamplight. "By tomorrow, Chief Samuel Olawukura will be declared dead, and everything he built will belong to me. To us." The senator raised his glass. "To new beginnings." Their glasses clinked, a quiet sound, yet it echoed down the corridor like thunder in Bimp's ears. Her knees weakened. She backed away, heart pounding, hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. Her brother, her own flesh and blood, was planning to fake their father's death before dawn. She ducked behind a curtain as footsteps approached. Colonel's shadow passed close, his phone pressed to his ear. "Ensure the nurse is gone before I get there," he said. "No witnesses." Bimp's breath caught. The nurse. She waited until he turned the corner, then slipped out of hiding and ran toward her father's room, the hem of her wet dress brushing the marble. Her pulse roared in her ears.
The door stood ajar now.
The machine's beeping had changed, slow, irregular. The nurse's chair was empty. "Hello?" Bimp whispered. No answer. She stepped closer, trembling. Her father's bed was still there, the sheets slightly rumpled, but empty. The 4-drip swung gently as though someone had just moved it. Her throat went dry. No, 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 no. She turned in panic, searching every corner. The bathroom, empty. The balcony, only rain. Her phone vibrated in her palm. One new message. "You're too late." Her heart stopped. She stared at the screen, the letters glowing cold in the darkness. Outside, thunder cracked so loud it shook the windows. The first light of dawn crawled over Akoi, washing the mansion in gray. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than thunder. Bimp's shoes squelched on the wet marble as she stumbled down the corridor, calling for the nurse. "Nurse Titi, where are you?" No reply, just the distant hum of a generator and the faint metallic echo from below. She followed the sound to the basement door. It was half open, a thin beam of light cutting through the darkness. She hesitated, gripping the handle. Inside, the air smelled of dust and antiseptic. Shelves of cleaning supplies lined the walls, but something moved in the corner, a faint whimper. Bimp's heart pounded as she pulled out her phone's flashlight. There, slumped against a pillar, was Nurse Titi, wrists bound with duct tape, eyes wide with terror. "Oh my God," Bimp gasped, rushing to untie her. "Who did this to you?" Titi winced, rubbing her wrists. They took him," she whispered hoarsely. "Your father. They came in an ambulance. Your brother said it was a transfer, but I knew it wasn't right. When? Before midnight. He told me to step outside and get the nurse's file from the car. When I came back, 2 men in hospital coats were wheeling him out. Connell gave them an envelope and they drove off. Bimp's stomach twisted. Where did they take him? I don't know. But I heard Connell say something about the Civic Center papers. Something about final signatures before dawn. I swear, madam, I didn't want to help them. Bimp squeezed her arm gently. I know. You've helped enough. She reached into her pocket and felt the small flash drive, her father's final key. The same one Connell had wanted to destroy. Maybe the truth he feared was inside it. The House of Shadows. Upstairs, the mansion glowed dimly under the rising sun. Connell's car was gone. The senator's SUV tracks cut through the wet driveway like scars. Bimp moved quickly, keeping low, her heartbeat steadying with purpose. She knew the password to Connell's study, the same one their father once used before Connell changed it slightly. His own birthday, reversed. The biometric lock clicked open. Inside, the air smelled of expensive cigars and deceit. Papers littered the desk, but what caught her eye was a half-open drawer with several flash drives neatly arranged beside a small red ledger. She sat down, slipping her own flash drive into the laptop. Folders popped open instantly. Documents, transactions, medical reports. Her eyes widened as she scrolled. There it was. Proof. Transfers from Alawukra Holdings to offshore accounts bearing Senator ODU's initials. Donations to fake charities. Money moved every time their father was hospitalized, as if Connell had been siphoning funds while pretending to handle medical bills. But deeper still, she found a folder marked Father's Legacy. Inside was a recorded video. She clicked play. Her father's face appeared on screen, pale but lucid. His voice trembled, but carried its old authority. If you're watching this, it means the house I built has begun to crumble. Connell has lost his way. He believes the company belongs to him. But what he doesn't know is that every contract, every deal, has my signature embedded in trust. And that trust is written in blood. Find the ledger. Find the truth. The screen froze on his tired smile. Then it went black. Bimp covered her mouth, tears welling. Her father had known. He had prepared for this. She looked at the red notebook again. The spine read in faded gold, Private Ledger, Alawukra Family. She opened it. Inside were names, amounts, and strange annotations in Yoruba, phrases like blood loan, faith payment, and sacrifice held. Her father's warning echoed in her mind. In every rich man's home, there's a ledger written in blood. The weight of the name. For the first time, she understood the full horror of what Connell had done. He wasn't just stealing money. He was selling their father's reputation, his name, the one thing that had kept their family respected in Lagos for decades. Her hands trembled as she copied the files to her phone. Then she heard footsteps outside. 2 of Connell's bodyguards were approaching. Search every room, one said. She's still inside. Panic surged through her. She turned off the lamp, crawled under the desk, and held her breath as the door creaked open. A flashlight beam swept the room. One of the guards grunted. She no fit enter here. Ogalok and before he comet. The door clicked shut again. She waited 10 more seconds before slipping out the window onto the balcony. The rain had started again, light, cold, and constant. She lowered herself to the ground, landing on wet grass, and ran. A city that never sleeps. By noon, Bimp was sitting on a bench near Yaba bus terminal, hair plastered to her face, her designer dress soaked and wrinkled. She clutched her bag close. Inside it, the flash drives, the ledger, and everything that could destroy her brother. People rushed past her, traders shouting, Danfo conductors calling for passengers, the smell of roasted corn drifting in the air. Lagos moved on, as if the world hadn't fallen apart. She pulled out her phone. Dozens of missed calls, from Connell, from unknown numbers, from their father's lawyer. She ignored them all. Then, through the blur of the crowd, she saw a familiar figure. The same homeless man she had once given food to outside her office months ago. He was sweeping rainwater from the curb with a broken broom, humming an old fella tune. When he looked up and saw her, recognition flickered in his eyes. Madam Bimp. She blinked. How do you know my name? He smiled faintly. Who no Alawukrapikin. You once buy me bread and tea when people cross the road to avoid me. You get your mama heart. Her throat tightened. Please, sir, I need help. I can't go home. They're looking for me. He gestured toward a corner where an old shed stood, half hidden behind a cluster of danfos. Come rest small. No one go find you there. She hesitated, then followed. Inside the shed, the man's few belongings were neatly arranged, an old mat, a kettle, and a faded photograph on the wall. It was a picture of Chief Samuel Alawukra, shaking hands with younger workers at a construction site. Bimp's jaw dropped. You worked for my father? The man nodded slowly. For many years. Till one day, everything changed. He looked away, his voice heavy. Your brother fired me when I see what I wasn't supposed to see. Her pulse quickened. What did you see? He studied her face, as if deciding whether to trust her. Then he said, quietly, I know where your father is. And he's not dead. Bimp froze. The city noise faded until all she could hear was her own heartbeat. What did you say? The man leaned closer. Your brother hide in one old rehab center near Ape. Him and the senator use for something bigger than money. But I fit take you there if you ready to see the truth. She looked at him, at the lines of hardship on his face, at the rain dripping from his beard. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt a glimmer of hope. But hope came with fear. If Connell was willing to fake their father's death, what else could he do? She took a deep breath. Take me to him. The man nodded slowly. Then prepare your heart, madam. Because the truth fit kill you before the lies do. The drive out of Lagos was long and quiet. The homeless man, who finally introduced himself as Baba Iridi, sat beside Bimp in the back of a rickety taxi, his hands folded over his worn coat. The city thinned behind them. The noise of Yaba and Suralere faded into the hush of wetlands and palm trees. Soon, only the hum of the tires and the cries of faraway birds filled the air. Bimp clutched her father's red ledger, its pages wrapped in plastic. She couldn't stop thinking about Connell's words, the doctor's fear, the nurse's tears. Each thought sliced through her like broken glass. How did you know my father? She asked quietly. Baba Iridi smiled faintly, eyes fixed on the passing mangroves. I was one of the engineers that built the first Alawukra estate in Lekki. Your father was a good man, but he made powerful enemies. When he refused to let the senator buy the company outright, they used your brother against him. Bimp turned sharply. Used him how? The old man sighed.
Money, pride, and fear.
Connell wanted to be like his father, but without patience. Senator Odiu promised him a shortcut to power. Before your father fell sick, he found out about the fake contracts. That's why they wanted him gone. Bimp's breath caught. So my father's illness. Part of their plan, Baba said softly. They kept him drugged. Long enough to sign documents he didn't understand. Her hands tightened on her lap. Then why help me now? He looked at her with weary eyes. Because your father once helped me when nobody would. He paid for my son's surgery, even when I had already lost hope. He told me, a man's wealth is not what he keeps, but what he leaves behind in people. When they fired me, I didn't hate him, I pitied the house he built. Now maybe I can repay him. Tears welled in Bimp's eyes. She turned to the window, blinking at the blur of trees and sky. If he's alive, she whispered, we'll save him, even if I have to face Connell myself. By the time they reached Ape Lagoon, the sun was beginning to sink behind the palm groves. The taxi dropped them near a dirt path leading into a cluster of abandoned buildings. The air smelled of brine and decay. Baba Iridi pointed ahead. That old rehab center, people say it closed 5 years ago. But I see cars go in and out at night. Rich people cars. Bimp's heart hammered. She could almost hear the distant call of the sea mixing with the hum of generators. They crept closer through the bush, stopping behind a broken fence. Inside the compound, a few men in security uniforms lounged near a veranda, their rifles resting lazily on their laps. Bimp's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have left Lagos." Her fingers trembled. She switched the phone to silent. "Stay here," Baba Iridi whispered. "Let me talk to the gate man. Maybe him still remember me." He shuffled forward slowly, his limp pronounced. The guards laughed when they saw him. "Old man, who you dey find for here?" one asked. Baba Iridi smiled weakly. "Nah me, Iridi. I work here long ago when this place still dey open. I come see one Dr. Bello." The younger guard frowned. "We no get any Bello here." But before he could turn him away, a voice came from the veranda, deep and commanding. "Who's that?" Bimp's heart froze. It was Kunnel. He stepped into view, dressed casually in a linen shirt, his expression calm but eyes cold. "Iridi," he said, recognizing the old man. "I thought you disappeared." Baba bowed slightly. "Oga Kunnel. I just come greet." Kunnel smiled faintly, walking closer. "You always had good timing. Tell me, did you come alone?" Bimp ducked behind the fence, barely breathing. Baba Iridi shook his head. "Alone, sir." Kunnel studied him a moment longer.
Good.
"Because anyone who comes here without invitation doesn't leave." He turned back toward the building. "Get rid of him." Two guards grabbed Baba roughly. Bimp's stomach dropped. She wanted to scream, but Baba caught her eyes from afar and shook his head no. The message was clear, don't move. As they dragged him toward the gate, he shouted over his shoulder, his voice cracking but strong. "Bimp, if you hear me, follow the sound of the generator. Your father is near the water tank." Kunnel spun around in fury. "Who are you talking to?" But by then, Bimp was already running through the bushes, tears streaming down her face, her heart pounding like drums. She reached the back of the compound where the old water tank loomed tall and rusted. The generator hummed beside it, drowning every sound. There, under the flickering light, she saw something that made her collapse to her knees. Her father, Chief Samuel Olawukra, lay strapped to a hospital bed, his body weak but breathing, surrounded by 4 bags and machines humming in the dark. "Daddy," she whispered, choking on a sob. "Oh God, you're alive." His eyelids fluttered. A faint smile trembled on his lips. "Bimp, is it really you?" "Yes, Daddy. I'm here. I'm taking you home." But before she could touch him, a shadow fell across the doorway. Kunnel's voice sliced through the night. "Home? You're not going anywhere." The sound of Kunnel's footsteps filled the small ward like the ticking of a bomb. Bimp spun around, shielding her father's fragile body with her own. "Stay away from him," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Kunnel smiled, the kind of cold, effortless smile that used to charm business partners, but now looked like a serpent's grin. "Little sister," he said, stepping closer, "you shouldn't have come here. You always had a habit of showing up where you don't belong." Her eyes flashed. "Where I don't belong? This is our father. What have you done to him?" Kunnel's expression hardened. "I've done what needed to be done. He was a liability. You think the world respects sick old men who can't sign their own names? The board was ready to replace him." "You drugged him," she shot back. "You made him sick." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Don't be dramatic, Bimp. The old man built an empire. I'm just managing the transition." Bimp took a step forward. "You call kidnapping management? You call burying him alive in a fake rehab center transition?" For a moment, the mask slipped. Kunnel's voice rose. "You have no idea what it takes to stay on top in this city. You think success smells like roses? It smells like blood and smoke. And father knew that." Her father's voice came weakly from the bed. "Kunnel, stop this." Kunnel's head snapped toward him, eyes burning. "You should have stayed asleep, old man." Bimp moved between them again. "You won't touch him." Kunnel's jaw clenched. "You can't stop me. You never could. You were always the emotional one, Daddy's precious little girl." Something inside her broke. "And you were always the disappointment he tried to hide behind expensive suits." The The slap came fast, sharp and echoing across the room. But Bimp didn't flinch. She stared at him, cheeks burning, eyes glistening with tears that refused to fall. "Hit me again," she said softly. "Because this time, I'll make sure the whole world sees it." Connell froze as she raised her phone, the camera light blinking. "You think I came here unprepared?" she whispered. "I've recorded everything. The doctor, the nurse, the ledgers, the fake death certificate. You're finished." His composure cracked. "You don't know who you're fighting." "No, Connell," she said, stepping closer, her voice steady now. "It's you who doesn't know who you're fighting. You tried to kill the man who gave you everything. You sold our family's name for power. But guess what? Power built on betrayal always collapses." For the first time, Connell looked uncertain. The weight of her words hung between them, heavy and cold. Chief Samuel's weak voice broke the silence again. "My children, please stop." Both turned to him. His eyes, though dim, still carried the authority of the man who had once ruled Lagos boardrooms. "Connell," he murmured, "when a man kills his name, he kills himself. I built this empire for both of you, but I see now only one of you deserves it." He reached out a trembling hand toward Bimp. "Save the name, my daughter. Save the truth." Bimp clasped his hand, tears finally falling. "I will, Daddy. I promise." Connell's face twisted. "You think anyone will believe you over me? I have the board, the media, the politicians." "And I have the truth," she interrupted. "And the truth is louder than money." Before he could reply, a loud commotion came from outside. Shouts. Footsteps. Connell's eyes widened. "What did you do?" Bimp's phone vibrated. One new message from Nurse TT. "Police on the way." "I told them everything." Connell lunged for her, but she dodged and ran toward the door. He grabbed her wrist, yanking her back. "You'll destroy everything," he hissed. She met his gaze, fierce and unyielding. "No, brother. I'm saving what's left." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Baba Iridi's voice echoed faintly from the corridor. "Madam Bimp, they're coming. Go." She tore herself free, grabbed her father's wheelchair, and pushed him toward the back exit. Connell followed, shouting orders to the guards, but the noise of approaching sirens drowned his voice. Rain began to fall again, cold and relentless, as Bimp and Baba Iridi wheeled Chief Samuel toward the gate. Connell stood in the doorway, drenched, shouting into the wind. "You think you've won? You don't know the half of it." Bimp turned once, her hair clinging to her face. "Then I'll find the other half and end it." The gate burst open. Police officers stormed in, flashing lights cutting through the night. Connell froze as they surrounded him. "You can't arrest me. I'm Connell Olawukra." One of the officers raised a document. "We have evidence of fraud, kidnapping, and attempted murder. You're under arrest." Bimp stood silently, holding her father's hand as Connell was led away, shouting threats into the storm. For a long moment, the rain and sirens were the only sound. Then her father whispered weakly, "You did well, my child." She nodded, tears mingling with the rain. "It's not over yet, Daddy. Not until the whole world knows what he did." He smiled faintly. "Then let the world listen." Stories_by_Stoner. What would you do if your own brother betrayed your family for power? Could you forgive, or would you expose him? Drop your comment below and tell us where you're watching from, Kingston, Atlanta, or Lagos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Chapter 8 of Doctors Gave Billionaire's Father 2 Days to Live. The rain had stopped by the time they reached the small government hospital in Ape. The dawn light painted everything silver. The puddles, the ambulance windows, even the exhausted faces of the police officers who had rescued them. Bimp sat beside her father's bed, holding his frail hand as nurses checked his vitals. His breathing was shallow but steady. Baba Iridi sat quietly in the corner, a bandage around his arm, his eyes distant but peaceful. For the first time in days, silence didn't feel dangerous. It felt sacred. The chief doctor entered, his voice soft. "Madam, he's stable now. But his body is weak. He'll need time and peace." Bimp nodded gratefully. Thank you, doctor. When the door closed, she turned to her father. Daddy, we're safe now. Connell's been arrested. Chief Samuel opened his eyes slowly, the lines on his face deep but calm. Safe, he murmured. No, my daughter. Safety in this world is never free. It always costs something. She leaned closer. Then I'll pay it. He smiled faintly. You already are. Bimp swallowed hard. They took everything from you. The company, your name. My name still lives, he interrupted gently, touching her cheek. Because you refused to be silent. She felt her throat tighten. I couldn't just watch. He nodded weakly. That is what your mother would have done too. At the mention of her mother, tears filled Bimp's eyes. She would have hated what Connell became. No, Chief Samuel said softly. She would have pitied him. Pride makes men blind, my daughter. But forgiveness lets us see again. Bimp looked away, unsure if she was ready for forgiveness. He almost killed you, Daddy. He sighed deeply.
Yes.
But if hatred is all we have left after this, then he is still one. Hours passed. The news spread fast across Lagos. Billionaire's son arrested for fraud and kidnapping. Social media buzzed with shock and gossip. Some defended Connell, others cursed him, but everyone had an opinion. At the hospital, journalists camped outside the gate, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Olawukro family. Baba Iridi turned on the small television in the corner. A reporter stood before flashing police cars, saying, Authorities have confirmed that financial records and a hidden ledger were discovered, exposing a long-running partnership between Connell Olawukro and Senator Odiu. Investigations are ongoing. Bimp stared at the screen, feeling both relief and sorrow. Justice, she whispered. But at what cost? Baba Iridi looked up from his seat. Sometimes justice no get joy. It only get peace. Small, quiet peace. She nodded slowly. You're right. He smiled, his face kind despite the scars of hardship. Your papa go rise again. People like him no fall forever. Bimp turned back to her father. We'll rebuild, Daddy. Maybe not the company, but the name. The truth will be our legacy. Chief Samuel's eyes glimmered faintly. Then promise me something, Bimp. Anything. When I'm gone, don't build walls around your heart. Build bridges. Help people. Even when it hurts. She gripped his hand tighter. I promise. He smiled. Good girl. That night, the hospital grew quiet. The rain began again, soft, steady, washing away the day's noise. Bimp sat by the window, watching lightning flash over the lagoon. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. They won't stop with Connell. Her stomach clenched. She typed back immediately. Who is this? No reply. She turned to Baba Iridi. The senator, he won't just sit and wait, will he? The old man's expression darkened.
No.
Men like Odiu don't lose quietly. You beat a politician. He no day forgive. Bimp's gaze hardened. Then we finish what we started. We expose everything. She picked up the red ledger, flipping to the back pages. Something caught her eye, a set of initials she hadn't noticed before, OD, signed beside several payments labeled charity contributions. She looked closer. Next to the last signature, her father had scribbled something faintly in Yoruba. Ooni yayo mualwada si Oriol. This money will bring the house beneath the roof. She frowned. He knew Odiu would be the end. Baba Iridi nodded. Your father always saw far. Maybe too far. Bimp closed the ledger gently. Then tomorrow, the world will see too. Morning broke with a pale sun. Lagos traffic already hummed beyond the lagoon. Reporters were still outside, cameras ready. Bimp stepped out of the ward, her father resting peacefully inside, and turned to Baba Iridi. Tomorrow, she said quietly, we go back to Lagos. The old man nodded, his cane tapping lightly on the floor. To finish it? Yes, she said. To tell the truth, in our own voices. He smiled, the corners of his tired eyes softening. Then Lagos, no go forget your name again. Bimp looked toward the rising sun and whispered, "Neither will I." Lagos had never looked louder. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. Traffic honked in protest as security guards tried to hold the crowd outside the federal high court, Ikoyi. Inside, the air was thick with perfume, sweat, and tension. Bimp stood near the front row, wearing a simple white blouse and black skirt. No jewelry, no makeup, just truth. Her father sat behind her in a wheelchair, dressed in a clean kaftan, looking frail but proud. Baba Iridi stood by the door, silent and watchful. Across the aisle sat Senator Odiu, his agbada immaculate, his face calm like a crocodile's before the bite. His lawyers whispered into his ear, their briefcases heavy with lies. Kunal was not there. He had refused to appear, claiming illness. But his shadow lingered in every whisper, every camera flash. The clerk called the session to order. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Bimp Olawukura, you may proceed." She rose slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. "Your lordship," she began, her voice steady but trembling underneath. "My name is Bimp Olawukura, daughter of Chief Samuel Olawukura, founder of the Olawukura Foundation. 2 weeks ago, doctors said my father would die within 48 hours. What they didn't tell us was that his own son and a sitting senator had already signed his death certificate." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. She lifted the red ledger. "This," she said, "is the truth they tried to bury. Inside are payments, signed and sealed by Senator Odiu and my brother Kunal, meant to siphon millions from the family foundation into offshore accounts. When my father discovered it, they made him disappear." Odiu shifted in his seat, whispering furiously to his lawyer. Bimp continued, her tone rising. "They called it a stroke. But it was poison, administered slowly, through the same private nurse Senator Odiu recommended."
Gasps.
Flashlights. Reporters leaned forward like vultures smelling fresh news. She turned toward Odiu. "You thought you could silence an old man. But you forgot something. Truth doesn't die just because you pay someone to bury it." The senator finally spoke, his voice oily and confident. "Objection, your lordship. This woman is not a medical expert, nor is this court a tabloid." The judge held up a hand. "Overruled. Let her speak." Bimp opened the ledger and displayed the last page. "This is my father's handwriting, dated 2 months before he was found unconscious. It says, 'Odiu and Kunal must be stopped before the foundation becomes a weapon.'" The courtroom erupted. Reporters typed frantically. Camera shutters sounded like gunfire. Senator Odiu rose, anger flashing in his eyes. "This is slander. You think you can destroy my name with fabricated documents?" Bimp faced him squarely. "Your name destroyed itself the day you sold your conscience." The crowd gasped again. Her father's voice, weak but clear, broke the tension. "I taught you to serve, Odiu. You served greed instead." Everyone turned toward him. Chief Samuel's eyes were wet, but his tone was steel. "When a man sells his soul for power, he builds his throne on sand. Today, your sand is washing away." Senator Odiu tried to speak, but a police officer entered the courtroom and handed the judge a folder. The judge scanned it, his face unreadable. Then he looked up. "This," he said slowly, "is a confession from Nurse Titi, verifying Mrs. Olawukura's claims, along with recorded phone conversations between Mr. Kunal Olawukura and Senator Odiu." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Odiu's composure shattered. "This is a setup. I demand." But 2 officers stepped forward. "Senator Odiu, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice." Bimp stood still as cameras swarmed. Odiu was handcuffed, shouting threats, his agbada flapping like a wounded flag. Chief Samuel closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God." Baba Iridi stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Bimp's shoulder. "It is done, my child. The truth don't talk." But Bimp wasn't smiling. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from pain this time, but release. "This isn't victory," she murmured. "It's closure." She walked to her father and knelt beside him.
We did it, Daddy.
The name is clean again. He smiled weakly. You gave me something money could never buy, peace before the end. She rested her head on his lap as the cameras continued to flash. Outside, the crowd roared as the senator was led into a police van. Lagos traffic came to a standstill. People shouted, waved newspapers, recorded videos. A woman in the crowd whispered, "That girl, she's her father's strength." Another said, "Stories like this remind me good people still exist in this world." And somewhere far away, Connell watched the news on a hospital TV, his face pale, his eyes hollow. For the first time, he understood the meaning of loss. That evening, Bimp stood by the balcony of the hospital, watching the sun set over the lagoon. She could hear the faint hum of city life, horns, laughter, gospel songs. Her father was asleep, peaceful. Baba Iridi was praying quietly in the corner. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Mama, we did it." And for a brief, shining moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks, hope. If the people you trusted most tried to destroy your family, would you fight for justice like Bimp, or walk away in peace? A comment below where you're watching from, Jamaica, Chicago, or Lagos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the final chapter of Doctors Gave Billionaire's Father 2 Days to Live. The morning light crept gently through the curtains of the hospital room. Birds sang faintly outside, and for the first time in weeks, the city of Lagos felt quiet. Bimp sat by her father's bedside, still wearing the same white blouse from the court. Her eyes were tired but peaceful. Chief Samuel was awake, propped up by pillows. His face looked softer, almost lighter, as though a great burden had lifted from his chest. "My daughter," he whispered, "you have carried more than any child should." She smiled faintly. "You taught me to stand for truth, Daddy. I only followed your steps." He reached for her hand, his skin cool but firm. "And in doing so, you became stronger than I ever was." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. The city outside began to stir, vendors calling, motorcycles roaring, life moving on. Baba Iridi entered quietly with a tray of pap and akara. "Doctors say you must eat, sir," he said with a smile. Chief Samuel chuckled weakly. "Pap again? If I survive this, I'll buy you a restaurant, so you can cook me something new." They all laughed, a light, healing laughter that made the sterile room feel warm. Then the door opened, and a nurse stepped in with a small envelope. "Madam Bimp, this came for you." She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten in neat script. Her eyes widened when she saw the signature, Connell. She hesitated, then unfolded the paper. "Bimp, I watched the trial from my hospital bed. I have no excuse for what I did. The greed, the pride, they consumed me. But seeing you stand in that court, seeing Father's eyes when he looked at you, I realized too late what it means to truly carry a name. Tell him."
I'm sorry. For everything.
"Connell." Her hands trembled. Tears gathered, but did not fall. Chief Samuel noticed. "What is it?" She handed him the letter. He read it slowly, his eyes glistening. He said softly, folding it back. "Repentance. It may not change the past, but it heals the soul." Bimp looked down. "Do you forgive him?" He nodded. "I forgave him before he was even caught." A father's heart must always be bigger than his child's mistake. She sighed, whispering, "Then I forgive him too." Later that day, reporters gathered outside the hospital for one final statement. Bimp stepped out in a soft blue dress, her hair tied neatly, her father's rosary bracelet on her wrist. Cameras clicked. Microphones pointed. One reporter asked, "Madam Bimp, what happens now to the Olawukura legacy?" She smiled faintly. The legacy was never the money or the empire. It was integrity, and that's what we're rebuilding. Another asked, "And your brother?" She paused, looking toward the sky. "He will face what the law decides. But as a sister, I hope one day he finds peace. The kind that comes when you stop running from truth." The reporters nodded, visibly moved. "Thank you," she said softly and walked back inside. That evening, the sun dipped low over the lagoon. The sky burned orange and gold. Bimp and Baba Iridi stood outside the hospital garden, watching patients walk with their families. "Lego's still busy," Baba Iridi said, chuckling. "Even sunset no fit calm this city." Bimp smiled. "That's the beauty of it. Life goes on." He turned to her. "What you go do now?" She looked thoughtful. "Start again. Maybe reopen the foundation, but for real people this time. For children who sleep under bridges. For men like you, Baba Iridi, who help strangers without asking why." He smiled shyly. "Ah, God bless you, my daughter. The world go remember your name." She looked out over the water. "Not my name, Baba. Our story." Inside, Chief Samuel was resting. The nurse had dimmed the lights, leaving only the glow of the sunset across his face. He opened his eyes slowly as Bimp entered. "You've been outside long," he murmured. She sat beside him. "Just watching the city, Daddy. It's still beautiful." He smiled faintly. "Lagos will always be beautiful, even when it breaks your heart." She held his hand. "I'm proud to be your daughter." He closed his eyes, whispering, "And I'm proud to have lived long enough to see the truth win." His breathing slowed, steady, peaceful. A soft tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't cry out. She just sat there, holding his hand as the machines hummed gently beside her. The sun set fully, leaving a quiet golden trace on the horizon. The next morning, the Alawukra Foundation reopened, not as a corporate empire, but as a free community health trust named the Samuel Alawukra Trust for the Forgotten. Children lined the gates, women sang softly, and banners read, "Truth heals. Love restores." Bimp stood beneath the sign with Baba Iridi, holding the same ledger that once exposed betrayal, now a symbol of redemption. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Daddy," she whispered to the wind, "you didn't die in vain." Stories_by_stoner. If this story touched your heart, drop a red heart in the comments and tell us where you're watching from: Kingston, Lagos, New York, or Accra. Would you have forgiven Kunnal if you were Bimp? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories from Stories_by_stoner, where truth, family, and redemption live forever.